I asked for my filing cabinet to be moved out of the kitchen. It was in the middle of the kitchen for like a week and a half.
Yeah.
Here's where he moved it to.
Oh, well,
Still attached to the dolly.
it's not in the kitchen anymore.
It's not in the kitchen. I said, you have to be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Granddaughter's starting school today.
This,
Oh, she's so pretty.
I'm just saying, you wanted it to not be in the kitchen.
I did.
It is no longer in the kitchen.
It is no longer. It is
You
no
have to be more
longer.
specific.
That's right.
But, you know, and I've been pretty specific about my closet doors, and they've sat there for 2 months.
Oh,
And I finally told them yesterday, I said, if you're not going to put them up, just move them, because there's a really good space there that I could use for
I would
storage.
fill in with
So if you're not going to put them up, that's fine. I can deal with that. Just get them out of here.
Has that happened yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh no, Aaron's going to help me put them up. I for that sort of last 2 months.
So you don't have any doors on any of your closets right now?
Just on my closet.
Okay.
Everybody else's closet, the other closet has wonderful doors on it and shelves
Yeah.
built in. He's built in shelves in his closet, and it's just so wonderfully organized.
Yeah.
It's just something you take a picture of and put in a magazine.
Yeah. You just don't have any in yours.
I have none. I have no
Okay.
shelves. I have no closet doors.
So your clothes are all on a pile on the floor?
No, I got him hanging up.
Okay.
Did you quit baking for him? He doesn't eat my baking. But he was sweet. He did get up at 3 this morning and take Buddy out to go to the bathroom.
Well, that was nice.
Well, there you go.
Well, I just got to bed.
Well, all right.
They gave Buddy some new medicine. And
Uh-huh.
there you go.
So you're somebody's constantly.
Yeah, we don't have
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And the other night he was chasing an armadillo.
Oh well,
I have to watch him always out into it.
for sure,
He gets frisky.
for sure.
No, I'll never. Like when I bring something.
I always just done myself. Yeah.
Oh no, there's quite a few here.
There are. I'm really impressed.
Yes, there are.
Or-
So when you come to
or-
Congress, you'll find,
Yes.
you know, that you have some. You
Like
actually have
Andrea,
something.
Ashley, Chris Horton, I like and Turner, like created a little group.
Millie.
Of what?
Yeah, it's Millie. For celiac.
Oh yeah,
For all the
yeah, yeah. There's a whole bunch here.
There's a whole new small group.
you know what?
I don't know if they want to be one or not, but yeah, this, I guess you could.
That way you know that celiac's in Christ. Hello there.
Okay, question is as we get started this morning, because school either has started or is starting for just about everybody in our area this week. So thinking back, and I'm already guessing that Sherry's going to have some kind of story. I'm already guessing. But thinking back to, you know, first day of school when you were a kid, what was the thing that you looked forward to? You know, like the night. I remember for a long time, at least in elementary school, I couldn't sleep the night before, and I don't know why. Like I didn't feel like I was that excited, but still, I was like, I don't know. I was always just ready for, you know, that first day of school. What's the thing that you were looking forward to though? Elementary school, high school, it doesn't matter. What's the first thing? Yes, ma'am.
First day, first grade.
Okay.
We lived in Illinois.
Uh huh.
I had just gotten a new pair of glasses, and they had blue frames, and I was so proud of them. I thought they were so cute.
Yeah.
I go to school, and the kids made fun of me. They called me Four Eyes.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Yeah.
So on the way home, I was walking home with my older brother,
Uh huh.
and I was telling him all my woes.
Yes. Just how horrible life is because people are calling you Four Eyes.
Laughing, he thought that was so funny. So we had almost gotten home, and I was so mad at him and all of the kids for making fun of me that
Uh-huh.
day. I took my new glasses off, threw them down on the sidewalk, and jumped on them and smashed them.
Smashed your new glasses.
Wow. So I got in trouble again.
I would think so. I would think so.
What was your vision then? Was it?
I had astigmatism.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't horrible, but you could see.
So
Get another pair.
I was gonna say, how long did it take to get the next pair?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Okay.
What color did you get this in?
I know.
Yeah.
They were the same.
Yeah. Okay.
But they were so cute.
You were so looking forward to everybody,
Yes, tell me how cute my class is.
and they called you Four Eyes instead. How funny. Anybody else?
I'll tell you about my life.
Here we go. Here we go. Get comfy.
I started kindergarten and went 6 weeks, and they said I wasn't ready for school. So I went back home, and then at the end of the, or at the beginning of the next year, no, let's see, yeah, I didn't go back. The beginning of the next year, I started kindergarten again. So my dad always said I started going backwards ever since.
But did you like going to school, or did you just?
Oh, I like school.
Okay, yeah. Well, good.
They didn't even have kindergarten when I started.
So this was 20 kids in a country school.
Yeah.
In our senior year, our principal got in front of all of us and he said, I don't know how to tell you folks this, but kindergarten wasn't established when you started school. And new laws in Missouri say that you have to complete kindergarten. So all you people have to go back and redo kindergarten before you'll be allowed to graduate. Just as serious as he could be. And we're looking at each other because it's like 3 weeks before graduation.
Right.
We're like looking at each other. He finally cracked up. He said, I finally got you people in the meanest class for 12 years. And I've been waiting to get you back.
How funny.
And he did, because for a brief moment we all thought we were going to have to go back.
Yeah.
To kindergarten.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Adam Sandler movie, like.
Yeah.
Well,
I
Ann
told
Sandler
that
probably
wrong.
wasn't
The
making
first 6
movies when
weeks I went to
graduated.
first grade. The last 6 weeks I went to kindergarten. I told it wrong. The first 6 weeks I started
Wait.
first grade. They said I wasn't ready, so I went to stay home. And then the last 6 weeks of the school year, I went to kindergarten. Come back.
Now, was that the only? Now, did you go back to kindergarten the next year?
No, because the last 6 weeks I went to first grade.
To kindergarten?
The last 6 weeks.
So you only did 6 weeks of kindergarten in your life.
So, you know, that's why I'm so backward.
I love getting the school supplies list at Walmart.
Mhm.
Like going to find your school.
Yeah.
I love that. And then I love, like, for our family, it was like new clothes season. So
Oh, yeah.
I got to go pick out at least one new outfit. So that's
Wow.
the most, yeah.
Yeah.
School supplies, I love that so much.
My mom.
Back to school, going to the first day of school is Martin Luther King Day. I had 5 children. It was like, free at last. Thank God I'm free
Yeah.
at last.
Send them all back.
Send them all back.
My mom.
School clothes, but I was in California, so like my mom would buy me like things for winter, like jeans, jackets, sweatshirts. I'm like, I'm wearing this new outfit. It's the first day of school. It'd be 100 degrees outside. I
Yeah.
got jeans, my sweatshirt.
Because it's my new outfit.
So good.
I don't care what the weather's like. This is my new outfit.
And I would suffer for recess.
Dresses all through school.
See,
Did ya?
That was my Catholic school.
Mhm.
I switched to public school. Big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Got to wear those clothes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, my mom would do the school shopping for the school clothes shopping, but my mom was also a bargain hunter. So there was I don't know if it's a nationwide chain. I know it's at least regional. There used to be a store that's called NBC, Name Brand Clothing. Anybody remember this store? Is there still one there? Okay, there was one in Fort Smith, and it was all your knockoff stuff. And like I'm saying, knockoffs is knockoffs. So like 75% off. And most of the clothes were clothes that they couldn't sell in the regular department stores because they had some kind of blemish. You know, something that happened, there's a spot on them or there, you know, whatever. That's where we got a lot of our school clothes when I was younger because, you know, my mom was going to spend a whole bunch of money on brand new outfits and stuff like that. So
Grow so fast. That's where we're at right now.
that's true. That, mm-hmm.
Clothes, I was like, you grow so fast.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
anytime someone passes down clothes, I'm like, I really appreciate this.
My
How
dad
funny.
was a poor farmer, and we bought all of our own clothes. Each one of us.
Mm-hmm.
We worked during the summer. We babysit, like clean people's houses,
Mhm.
all this stuff, and then we bought our own clothes.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us, and I had hand-me-downs forever, ever, and so I like new clothes.
Yeah. I think probably one of my favorite years going back to school was my junior year of high school because I had just turned 16 that summer, so I had my license. I could drive, but I didn't have a car, so that was the downside. And my mom taught at my school, so I still had to ride with my mom to school, but I got to do the drive-in and and all that kind of stuff. So, but that was the big deal. And then like telling her that I needed the car, to go to basketball practice or whatever. And yeah, rarely did I get it, but anyway, school is starting, so fun times for everybody. We've been going through the book of Judges, and we're getting close to the end. We're not quite there, but we're getting close to the end of this study. We've been doing it all summer. And last week, Brandon led us through kind of the first part of our look at Samson. So if we go through all these different judges that we've been talking about, Samson probably has the most amount of, pages, I guess, dedicated to him. So Gideon had quite a few, and we spent a couple weeks at least talking about Gideon's life. But Samson's going to kind of be that way as well. Last week we just talked about kind of the events leading up to Samson's birth. Okay, so what do we remember? Just to kind of remind ourselves, what do we remember about what was unique about? Well, first of all, Samson's parents. This is in Judges chapter 13. If you need to look. Okay, Dad didn't believe Mom. And what did they have any kids before Samson? No, because why? Okay, she was unable to have children, and then she has this angel come and visit her and says that you're going to have a baby, and when she tells her husband about it, he's like, we'll see, and like he starts praying, God, can you have the guy that showed up to my wife show up and tell me the same thing? So, we talked about that a little bit last week, but. He said the angel told her that she's going to have a boy, but what specifically about this boy? What was going to be unique about him? It's going to be a Nazarite. And we go back to the book of Numbers, chapter 6, I believe it's number 6. It talks about what a Nazarite was. So if you can kind of give me a quick rundown. Anybody remember what a Nazarite was?
Don't drink wine.
Okay, no alcohol or anything that is used to make alcohol. Can't cut the hair.
And can't be around dead people.
There you go, man. Gold stars for Sharon this morning. That's right. So, yeah, couldn't touch a dead body, huh?
I was thinking like a funeral type situation, or like just if they see a dead body, or
Both. You cannot, like, even according to Numbers chapter 6, even if it was your parents, one of your parents had died, you couldn't go to the funeral because you couldn't be near the dead body. You could, because that would make you unclean, and then whatever the length of your vow was, you'd have to start over. And so one of the things that we think about with this Nazarite and this, it's usually called a Nazarite vow. It's this dedication to God for a specific purpose, and usually they would start out by shaving their heads, and then just letting the hair grow, and then they would refrain from alcohol and couldn't touch dead bodies for the length of whatever the vow was. Could be a few weeks, could be a few months, could be a few years, whatever that was. Matter of fact, there's at least once, I know for sure once, maybe twice, in the book of Acts, when Paul takes a Nazarite vow. I know for sure there's one, I think it's when he's in Corinth, where he shaves his head. And it's, Luke just kind of talks about it real quick and moves on. And then later on when he's in Jerusalem, he pays the fee for some other guys to take a vow. I can't remember if he took it with him or not, but I know he paid the fees for it. But, they talk about him shaving his head. So this is what Nazarites would do. I'm making a vow, and until whatever it is that I'm vowing reaches its fulfillment, I'm going to do these certain things. So what is unique about Samson as far as the Nazarite vow is concerned? There's no limit to this for the rest of his life. And this is what the angel tells his mom. For the rest of his life, he's going to be a Nazarite. He is always going to have this life of dedication to God. And right. Before he was ever born. Right. She couldn't drink, which is probably good for the baby. But she couldn't eat grapes. She couldn't eat raisins. Anything that would even come close to that. She had to keep herself clean as well.
She made it for him. So basically he didn't make it himself.
It's not. Yeah, that's the interesting part of it. It's not a vow that he. It was a vow that was made for him before he ever showed up. Yes.
And that was okay. I mean,
Well, I mean, what else are you going to do? You know, it's.
they thought because that's what his mom said you are.
Well, yeah, and that's what God told her to do. That's what God told her and her husband to
God
do.
didn't talk to him direct per se.
We don't have any record of that. So I don't know if there's at some point, maybe when he was growing up, that God somehow revealed himself to him and was like, hey, this is what you're going to do. I don't know for sure. And all we really know after he was born is that, you know, he grew. I mean, if you look at chapter 13, verse 25, verse 24 and 25, the woman gave birth to a boy named Samson. He grew, and the Lord blessed him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him while he was in Mahanadan between Zorah and Eshtaol. So one of the things that I looked at, I mean, all we know is that he grew. Well, the same thing said about Jesus when he's a kid too. He grew. You know, I mean, kids grow. So what does that mean about Samson? Well, we're going to find out. He grew really, really strong for sure. We'll find out about that today. But this phrase, the Spirit of the Lord began to stir him. So that Hebrew word, remember this part of the Bible is written in Hebrew. That Hebrew word literally means to tap or to beat regularly. It'd be like tapping on a drum, just same beat. Oh, you know, that's what it meant. But it would often be used to refer to like to trouble or to agitate, or I don't know, maybe it's the music that you're listening to every day while the guys are working on your roof. It's something that just like, it's not an irritation for Samson, but it's something that like there's something prodding him. There's something that is moving in him. Does that make sense? And it's constantly there. Okay. While he is growing up. So going back to your question, is there a point where he made this, you know, the vow was made for him? Did he kind of confirm it? Maybe so. There's some kind of connection that I think he recognizes that he has with the Spirit of God, you know, somehow moving in him, even if he doesn't fully comprehend exactly what that is. So when we get into chapter 14, now we jump into adulthood. Okay, so I'm not just going to read verse by verse, but just kind of walk through the story. And if something jumps out at you, feel free to ask a question, and I'll ask you guys some questions along the way as well. But we got Samson. He goes to this city called Timnah, or some of y'all's Bibles may say Timnath. But he sees this woman, and what nationality is she? Philistine. Okay, it's Philistine woman. So the Philistines lived. See on the map right here, Philistia. Okay, so he goes over to kind of this direction. This is where Samson grew up. This is where the Philistines lived. So he goes over to this town that's pretty much dominated by the Philistines, and sees this woman. Okay, and he decides that he wants to marry her. Now, we don't know that he has any interaction with this woman besides he saw her, she looked good, he wants her for a wife. Okay, there may have been some conversations that took place. We just don't know it. So he tells his parents, go get her for me. Go get me that wife. Why is he doing that? Why is he talking to his parents about this? Back in that time, it was customary. You would have the two fathers would meet together and kind of negotiate. You get the whole dowry. Somebody, you know, like here's what you get if you'll let my son marry your daughter, and here's what you get if you let my daughter marry your son. They work out kind of as a legally binding contract. And if something happened, you either had to pay back whatever it was that got paid to you, or you know, like you might have to go to court to settle. You know what happened when the engagement broke off. So I don't know. Maybe that still happens nowadays when engagements break off. Sometimes I don't know. Anyway, I got a funny story about that, but I'm not. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say that online, but I got a funny story about that, about somebody I know. But anyway, so they go to make the arrangements. Now, do his parents want to do this? No, because why? at least pick an Israelite. Yeah, at least pick an Israelite. Because how has Israel gotten in trouble in the past? They marry women from other, not just other tribes, but other nations, right? And when they do that, they get themselves into idol worship and all sorts of other problems. So they're like, don't do this. But like, there's plenty of women in our own tribe, in our own clan. Find somebody over here. Does Samson want to do that? No. And I guess, only child, he gets what he wants. So, I don't know. That's mean. I'm sorry if I offended any only children who are listening right now. But there is one thing about this. They go ahead and work on this marriage arrangement. What does it say in verse 4 specifically about this transaction?
The Lord tapping him and telling him to go because he needed to have a confrontation with the Philistines.
Yeah. So isn't that kind of odd though? Now we've come across this before, but is God sanctioning something that God says elsewhere, I don't want you to do? I mean, as Scripture says, it's the Lord that's doing it. This whole, his parents didn't know this is from the Lord, who was seeking an occasion to confront the Philistines, for at the time they were ruling over Israel. English, the translators do that. So there's no parentheses in ancient Hebrew. It's just kind of, yeah, it's just kind of a side note and like our English translators want to make mention of that. So I'm just saying it's interesting. I don't know if God knew that this marriage wasn't gonna, fully come through. But what does it say here about the Philistines that we haven't paid attention to at this point? Okay, so we've gone through this cycle again, right? The Israelites have fallen away from God. They're worshiping other gods. He's allowing another nation to rule over them. And we've talked about how it may not be with some of these nations that they're conquering the entire nation of Israel. A lot of times it's geographic. So probably the Philistines are domineering this whole area here, not necessarily the whole nation. Does that make sense? Okay? But they've been doing this for a while, and God is ready to put a stop to it. And he's going to do that through Samson. But the way that he's kind of allowing things to happen is for a confrontation to take place, but he's got to build the confrontation. Okay? All right. So they go to get things worked out for this wedding. On their way to Timnah, what happens to Samson? A lion comes out of nowhere and starts running at him. And what does Samson do? Tears the lion apart with his bare hands. Okay? I don't know, like, I would have been running from the lion. Not only did he not run from it, he, I guess, launched into it himself and wins the battle and tears the lion apart with his bare hands. Okay? So now, which means what? What has happened to the lion? Is it now living? No, it is dead. Is that a problem? What's part of the Nazirite vow? Can't touch. Can't be around a dead body. Okay? All right. So, well, it's not really his fault. I mean, he got attacked by a lion. He's self-defense, right? Does he tell anybody about this incident? No, doesn't even tell his parents about it. I'm thinking that somewhere along the way they got separated because they didn't know about it. Yeah. I mean, maybe they went on. Maybe they were further behind. He's closer ahead. I don't know. Yes, ma'am.
Is the Spirit of the Lord that said rushed upon him?
Yeah.
Being Samson.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The Spirit of the Lord came on him, and he tears this lion apart. And it says he tears it apart. How does it describe it? Yes, might have torn a young goat. That's what I see. I was thinking the same thing. Like, is this, when you tear a goat in half, he did that with a lion. I was thinking the same thing. Like, I don't know people who could tear a goat apart with their bare hands. Yes, ma'am.
So he'd have to always have someone prepare food for him because he couldn't touch. He couldn't prepare.
Maybe so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he couldn't do, because there's a whole bunch of people that he kills. So I don't know that he can do the killing himself. But once the person is dead, he can't come anywhere near him. I know. So I'm saying I would have guessed that somebody else has to fix his food for him.
Yeah. 'Cause
I
I've
guess.
seen no dead body than a human body. But
No, no, no.
without
It's
any body.
right.
So he couldn't kill his baby goat and eat it.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Maybe he could do the killing, but then he's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out." You know? Yeah. I don't know those details. Yeah. So I did just a little quick, like, okay, how common was this tearing baby goats thing? And it's kind of a phrase in Hebrew to talk about like when they would sacrifice goats. There would be, I mean, there would be tearing of limbs, there would be tearing the hide off, you know, and apparently that would be fairly easy to do on a small goat. And so all it's saying is that he was able to tear these limbs apart, like, you know, maybe he broke the jaw, maybe, you know, whatever. He is doing that as easily as someone who is preparing a sacrifice would do with a more defenseless animal, for whatever that's worth. Okay, so it's just kind of I guess an idiom for this time, describing how easy this was for Samson to do. This wasn't a tough fight for him. Okay, but he doesn't tell anybody about it. Verse 7, then he went down and talked with a woman, and he liked her. Well, that's good. That's a good thing. As far as we know to this point, you know, he's just seen her and is like, oh, I want to marry her. And now he talks with her, and he likes her too. So that's just bonus, I guess. So they decided to get everything worked out. Sometime later, verse 8, he goes back to marry her. Now, what's it, like, he likes her and then he takes off? What's the deal?
He probably went home with his folks and came back.
Yeah, but why are we doing that?
The phrase "she was right in his eyes" is that like the word for that? Because it's the second time it's used.
In what verse?
At the end of 7.
Uh-huh.
So like it's used like, in verse 3. Get her for me, she was right in the eyes, and it says it again. And she was right in Samson's eyes. So
Mhm.
it's like a phrase.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I really like her. She fits. She's.
I don't know if it's like meant something like the word.
It's not about right. It's not right as in like righteous or anything like that. It's like, that's one I want to pick. I think would be a good fit. I think would be a good match. And then he talks to her and confirms it. Oh yeah, we would be a good match. Yeah, but then, right. Yeah. So we talked about this before. You know, in Jesus' day, the whole engagement process would be maybe a year long, because the two dads would get together, work out the engagement and the dowry and all that kind of stuff, and then the groom would leave for anywhere from 9 months up to a year, and would go and like be building a house or building onto his father's house, preparing a place for he and his new bride to live, making some money so that he can support her when they do get married, all that kind of stuff. And then his dad would tell him, okay, now it's time to go get your bride. Like he wouldn't even decide when the day was to go get her. Well, that's not a new thing in Jesus' day. That's been centuries of that tradition. Now, did weddings happen sooner than that? For sure. But that was the kind of the tradition when you had this arranged marriage between these two parents. So he meets with her, likes her. Okay, let's get this worked out. Let's do this wedding. And then he leaves. So what I want you to understand, the reason I'm bringing it out is, you know, it says sometime later he goes back by and he sees this lion, which we're going to see in just a second. It's not like the next week. It's not like, you know, a few days later. There's a considerable amount of time that is probably taking place when he comes back by here. When he does, yes, ma'am.
Well, it says he refers to the lion then as a carcass.
Mm-hmm.
Normally you think of a carcass as just the bones. So it would have been a while before all the meat and the skin and everything
Right.
had been scavenged off of the lion.
Yes. It would take some time, for sure. So, and that's one of the things that I want to point out. When he comes back by this lion, or what's left of it, what does he find? Bees who have made, you know, honeycomb inside it, okay? And for a long time, I thought, well, it's just, you know, this is lion body. And, you know, it's almost like Empire Strikes Back when they kill the, was it the wonton? Is that what it's called? That's not. That's like a Japanese dish or something. But they kill the thing that Luke is riding on and get inside to save his life. And I feel like, you know, it's this lion who's, you know, I don't know, somehow has got his belly open. There's bees inside it. But to your point, this is a very, I mean, this is in the Middle East. This is a very arid place. It would not take an extremely long time for animals to come and pick off the meat and skin. You know, it's probably the skeleton of this lion for the most part that's left. Because also bees are not, they are actually, they don't like being around putrid things. They're not like flies. Flies will show up and swarm around dead flesh. Bees avoid it. Okay. So probably this is more of the skeleton of the lion that's left, that these bees have built this hive, this honeycomb in. So he sees all these bees, sees the honey, reaches in, grabs some honey. It's really good. Gives some of it to his parents. That's great. They like it. Does he tell her where it comes from? No. But what's the bigger problem here? I mean, this goes beyond, well, I just killed it. Like, this is sometime later. This is a dead body. Is he supposed to come anywhere near or touch a dead body?
Does he know that he's not to go near?
For sure. Yeah, he would know that. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, of the three main rules of being a Nazirite, how's he doing so far? Well, he's broken one. Yeah, he's broken one. Okay. Verse 10, his father went down to see the woman, and Samson made a feast there, as was customary for bridegrooms. And when he appeared, he was given 30 companions. Does anybody else have a different way that it reads there in verse 11? When they saw him. Okay, so again, typical wedding, you know, kind of tradition back in this time. It wasn't just the wedding day; it was the wedding week. You would have usually a feast that would last a whole week for all the family and friends, anybody that wanted to come. And this is where, when you get into the even Jesus, his first miracle of changing water to wine, that was a wedding feast that had been going on for days at that point, you know. So that was kind of the tradition in this culture, even back in the time of Samson. So he's got this feast that he's prepared, because as the groom, you're supposed to prove that you can take care of this bride, and part of the way to do that is provide this feast for everybody. And you've got all the supplies, all the food, and probably all the wine to drink. Okay, is he supposed to be around wine or have wine to drink? No, but he prepares this feast anyway. Okay. And then what does her dad provide for him in verse 11? 30 companions. So he's an Israelite coming over here to the Philistines with, as far as we know, just his parents. Does he have any groomsmen, as far as we can tell in the story?
No siblings.
He's got no siblings that we know of. And it doesn't look like he's got a bunch of groomsmen. So they give him 30 guys to be, you know, his wedding party. Why 30? That's a lot of groomsmen. Why do you think?
Like a custom, you know, because I know in Indian marriages now, the big fancy ones, they go on months. They have like, you know, like 30 or 40 groomsmen.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're rich, especially.
Yeah.
I think that they gave him to impress his parents how well they were. That they
Mhm.
gave him really
Yeah. So maybe it's kind of showing off their own wealth. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
30, some magic number.
It's used a lot in the Old Testament. I don't know that it's significant here in this case. That's a good question, but I don't think. I think it's more just, you know, it's just a big number than it is about any significant number. When did they give the 30 companions? When they saw him. Okay, so this is just a theory. It's just a theory. There's nothing to this point that, besides at the end of chapter 13, that says Samson was growing. There's nothing that really describes anything about how he looked. Okay, there are some people who think that part of, you know, his growing and his ability to have these amazing feats of strength is that he was a huge guy, that he was significantly larger than anybody else. Would he be a giant like Goliath? Maybe not that big, but he's just his frame, his height, he's just big. And so when everybody sees him, oh, we can't give him the 5 or 6 guys we usually give other guys. That's a big dude. And so we need to have more people, around him. That's a theory, okay? I don't know that for sure. But it kind of makes sense as far as just his physical frame when we start reading about more of his feats of strength. Now,
But wouldn't it be interesting if he was small? Because then it's a strong God.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. If he's this puny guy, it'd be even more. Yeah, it would be impressive. Yeah.
How old is he now?
If he's marrying somebody, he's probably just going to theorize. He's probably early 20s, late teens, early 20s. I'm saying, guys would even back in Jesus' day would marry women when they were in their as soon as a woman had her first period, she was able to get married back in this culture. As soon as you were able to bear children, you were able to get married. Did that happen all the time? No, but I'm just saying that also meant that younger men, maybe compared to nowadays, would get married as well. I mean, maybe they could. I would think he'd probably be a little bit older than that, but I don't know for sure. It's a good question. Okay, so the feast is going on, and then Samson decides to have some fun with his guests, and especially his companions, and he says, I'm going to tell you a riddle, and if you can't, well, I'll give you the whole 7 days of this wedding feast, and if you can't solve it at the end of the 7 days, then you're going to have to give me 30 changes of clothes. If you can solve it, I'll give you, there's 30 guys, I'll give each one of you a change of clothes. I'll give you all 30 changes of clothes. Okay? What's the riddle? In verse 14. Okay. Out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. What's he talking about? The honey coming out of the lion. Out of the eater, the thing that usually eats other people, I got something to eat. Out of the strong, I got something sweet. Okay? So he's talking about this lion. So, after 3 days, can they come up with the answer? No, because, that's the riddle. Like, how am I going to come up with that kind of... Yeah, exactly. It's just him. So who would even think, honey coming out of a lion? That doesn't even make sense. So, obviously he's going to win this contest, right? But then on the 4th day, they change tactics. What do? They bring in his new bride, and they tell her, you need to find out the answer to this thing. Or, what are we going to do? Yeah, burn you and your father's household to death. That's a little drastic, I think, I know. It's 30 changes of clothes. It doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. But it's more of a pride thing, I think, for sure. The Philistines, what are they doing to the Israelites right now, especially the Israelites in this area? They're dominating. They're conquering them. They're ruling over them. So how would they view Israelites in general? Lesser than, weaker. Those guys are dumber than us. They're weaker than us. And yet we can't solve this riddle from this stranger from this other country. So they're trying to save face. But it's still a pretty drastic threat, right? Okay, so does she say, yes, I'll do this? Yeah, she does, actually. Verse 16, Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, you hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't even told me the answer. You don't really love me. Yeah, you hate me. You don't really love me. If you love me, you would tell me the answer, but obviously you don't love me. How long does this go on? Okay, so the whole rest of the time, she cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So how do you think Samson's feeling about this wedding that he got? Hey, you know what? I don't think I like her anymore. I don't think she's right in my eyes anymore. Okay, so they get to the end, and finally on the 7th day,
But he didn't even give them
Right. So, and that's I don't know. There's a timing thing messed up there. So no. Let's see.
No, she didn't get it until he gave it to him on the 7th at the beginning, but they didn't confront her until the 4th day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So she didn't know.
He told them at the beginning. They didn't come to her until day 4. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I think it's just saying like she's crying the whole time. And who knows? She might have been crying, at the beginning, like, why'd you tell them, not tell me? And, I don't know. Anyway, he finally tells her. And so, right before sunset, right before the end of the day, on the 7th day, what do they come back and say? Verse 18. What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? We know that there's honey in a lion. We know we solved your riddle. And Samson says in reply, what? If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle.
So complimentary.
I'm telling you, he just called his new wife a heifer. And, say what you want, whatever implications about plowing with the heifer, like exactly what he's trying to get across there.
Study part's like,
Yeah.
this may have been a saying in Samson's times. Heifers were occasionally used for plowing. It's like, what a saying.
Yeah. But still.
I'm like, make sure it's like,
Yeah, just so you know, that was a saying back in that time.
Occasionally used as what?
To plow. Yeah. Usually be oxen or something like that. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, he's got to keep his end of the bargain. So the Spirit of the Lord comes on in verse 19, and he goes down to Ashkelon and strikes down 30 men, strips them naked, brings their clothes back, and gives those clothes to these guys. Now, just to pick this part of the story apart a little bit, where he's at with this wedding is probably somewhere in this area. Somewhere in this area here. Ashkelon is over here on the coast. Okay, so I can't remember if I wrote down the distance or not. That's true. That's true. Plus, what I'm saying is from Timnah, and Timnah's not on this map, but from Timnah to Ashkelon is about a 30-mile trip. So he spent a day or two, like he went way far away, and there's no real explanation for it except like maybe he wanted to make sure he didn't make the situation worse by killing the locals, maybe even inadvertently killing some of his new bride's family. He's going to go somewhere completely away. Maybe he's wanting to go somewhere where nobody can report back quickly and say it was Samson that did this. We don't know. But I'm saying he went 30 miles away, kills 30 guys, brings their clothes back, gives them to them. So again, if he's killing these guys, we don't know exactly how he killed them. So there could be some blood-stained clothes that he's handing back to these guys, and he's like, "Here you go. Here's your clothes. You won the bet." But then he gets mad. He's still mad about all this. So what does he do? Well, he didn't. He just left. He's just mad. He goes back to his father's house. Okay, that's in at the end of verse 19. Burning with anger, he went up to his father's house. So he goes back home. Does he take his wife with him? No. What happens to her? So this is the whole, I guess best man thing. Is it like, okay, next in line. Now you're her husband. We've had this party. Now she's yours. So anyway, her dad gives her to another guy, and she marries somebody else. I'm not saying that's the way it should have been. I'm not saying. Well. Right. It's kind of hard to say because they would probably, okay. Again, I've done more study on what is in Jesus' day, so I haven't studied this as much. I'm assuming it's similar, but they would have the wedding ceremony right off the bat. Okay, and then just to be blunt, the bride and the groom would head off not too long after the ceremony, and they would go immediately to the bridal chamber and go ahead and consummate the marriage and have sex. And just to be real blunt, there would be, people standing outside the door to make sure that's what was happening. And then after that was done, the bride and groom would come back out, and they would go in and make sure that there was blood on the sheets, make sure that she was a virgin when they got married. Okay? Then the party would start. So I'm saying for this, I would imagine the ceremony's already taken place, whatever the ceremony looked like. And they consider themselves to be married to each other. But you got to get through the whole 7 days to fulfill this feast and this wedding celebration. So, but also, like, he took off. He left. So the father may have assumed, well, he doesn't want her, and we're here at this wedding. Let's just give her to the next guy. Let's consummate it that way. I don't know for sure. Okay? Samson considers himself to be married. Even though he left his wife there, he considers her to be his wife. How do we know that? Look in chapter 15. Let's keep going. Verse 1, later on at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife. So does he think they're married? For sure. And he said, I'm going to my wife's room. But her father would not let him go in. Verse 2, I was so sure that you thoroughly hated her that I gave her to your friend. Isn't her younger sister more attractive? Take her instead. What a dad, man. The dad is like, hey, man, you left. I thought you didn't want her back, so I gave her to one of the 30 guys that was here with you. And so they're married, and she's not your wife anymore. But hey, I got another daughter. Matter of fact, she's prettier than that one. So why don't you just take her? We'll just call it even. Okay? My guess is he's even thinking, like, we won't have to go through this whole process again. We've already done the dowry and everything. Just, y'all can be married now. Does Samson want that? No. Samson thinks to himself, I need to get even. Okay? So he says, I have a right, in verse 3. I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them. So how has he harmed them already? He killed 30 guys. Okay, so let's stay with us. They can't solve his riddle. In retaliation for not being able to solve his riddle, they trick his wife and threaten his wife into finding out the answer for the riddle. In retaliation for plowing with his heifer, in retaliation for getting his wife to find out the answer to the riddle, what does he do? He kills 30 guys and gives them the clothes. Okay? In retaliation for that, they give his wife to somebody else, and she's not his wife anymore. So now what is he going to do in retaliation for that? He's going to, and he says what? I have every right. So he goes and catches how many foxes? 300 foxes. Anybody ever caught a fox before?
I caught one.
Did you?
I killed one.
Did you shoot it?
No, I hit
Of course you killed a fox, Sherry. I mean,
the tire wrench. I was taking a babysitter home. We'd hunted my folks' anniversary. My brother-in-law was a big fox hunter. And that fox ran in front of me, and I thought, I've got to beat John. I can get my fox.
Were you walking
No, I was in a car.
and you saw the fox?
I saw the fox. I jumped out and grabbed the tire wrench. Oh, I went, ugh, and I killed
Was
him.
it just sitting there?
Well, it's going across the road. But I ran and got him.
How far did you? That's not my question. How far did you chase the fox?
Just over through the ditch. on the
Where
other
was
side
your
of the road.
tire wrench? In the front seat?
No, in there behind my, there's my ranchero. It's just there in the back. And I reached back there and grabbed it. And, I mean, the fox was kind of dumb.
That's what I'm saying. Either that fox was slow.
No, I hit him over the head. Whoa, whoa, and I'd go, ooh, ooh. And so then I grabbed him up.
See, my whole life, I have thought foxes are hard to catch and hunt. And here you are going, I hit one with a tire iron in the ditch.
Yeah. So I threw him in the back of the ranchero, and then I got back to my house, and my sister and her husband were staying. So I drugged that bleeding fox just to show John I got a fox.
Did you take it in the house?
Yeah. So then he took it. I got money for it.
Well, there you go.
He would catch them all year long, and he'd throw them in a special freezer. And then when the price was up, he'd sell them. He'd skin them.
That's, man, I don't know if that came through on the mic online, but that's an amazing story, Sherry. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so Samson, without the use of a tire iron, caught 300. Yeah, they caught. Yeah, as far as we know, he did it barehanded. Caught 300 foxes. 300. Okay, it had to have taken a little while, I would think, but he catches 300 foxes, and then he takes them in pairs and ties their tails together, and then does what? Lights a torch and wedges that in between each tied up pair of tails and sets them loose. Now, if you're a fox and your tail is on fire, what are you going to do? You're going to run. So he turns them loose where? In the grain fields of the Philistines. Okay? And not just the grain fields, but also the vineyards and the olive groves too. So you got 300 foxes with their tails on fire running through these fields and orchards. What's going to happen? They're going to catch on fire. Okay? Huge amount of destruction. And Samson thinks, now we're even. Okay? The Philistines in verse 6 say, who did this? And they were told, Samson, the Timnite's son-in-law, because his wife was given to his friend. So the Philistines went up and did what? Burned her and her father to death. Okay? They don't go after Samson. They go after the wife and her father-in-law for not giving Samson his wife in the first place. So in retaliation for what Samson did, they kill his wife and his father-in-law. Is Samson going to let it go? No, because he's got to retaliate for his wife and his father-in-law being killed. Okay?
And his wife is totally innocent on all of this.
For sure. Well, I mean, she allowed herself to be plowed with, apparently.
Because they threatened to kill everybody. So
That's true.
So she's a noble person.
I mean,
Acting like a 13-year-old girl is what I'm imagining.
Yeah, a young.
yeah, she might have been a little older than that, but yeah, I mean, you know,
How do you do better, Mopper?
it sounds better if she's older than that anyway. Yeah,
She didn't do anything wrong.
I mean, she tricked her husband.
But she had an alternative.
Oh, they weren't going to actually kill her. Well, actually they were. So, yeah, I don't like. It doesn't seem well, and even the father-in-law. This isn't his fault. Samson's the one that told the riddle, and his daughter's the one that and he, yeah.
When her father-in-law offered
It's not fair. I'm not saying it's fair at all. I'm saying this is how they decided to retaliate. Okay. So what does Samson do? In verse 7, since you have acted like this, I won't stop until I get my revenge on you. He attacked them viciously and slaughtered many of them. And they went down and stayed in a cave in the rock of Edom. Okay, so he kills a whole bunch of them because they, in retaliation for killing his wife and father-in-law, who were retaliating because he burned up all their fields, because he was retaliating for them giving his wife to somebody else, because they were retaliating for him killing the 30 guys and giving the change of clothes, because he was retaliating for them solving his riddle. Oh, we're not done yet.
What did he eat in the cave? He can't kill an animal.
I think that,
get everything
yeah.
else.
Yes, he's
Why
done
not?
everything else. but
Yeah.
this wells-
Yeah, he's come near some dead bodies to this point with all the people that he's killed and stuff like that. Okay, so yeah. Real quick, I want to try to get this before we run out of time. The Philistines, in verse 9, they go up and they camp near where he's at. Now nobody knows where Lehi is for sure. There's a place called the rock of Edom that's on the western side of Judah. So in this area, somewhere out here, okay, he's hiding in this cave. But they come basically and invade the western part of the tribe of Judah, and the people of Judah come out like, what is the deal? I mean, obviously, Philistines are kind of in charge of this area anyway. But we brought an army out here. We brought soldiers. Like, why are you planning to attack us? What have we done? And they say, we just want Samson. All we want to do is to take Samson prisoner. And so 3,000, verse 11, 3,000 men of Judah go down to the cave where Samson's at and say, don't you realize that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us? And he answered, I merely did to them what they did to me. And they said to him, we've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines. And Samson said, that's fine. Just make sure what? You don't kill me yourself. You can tie me up. Just don't kill me yourself. So they tie him up with what? 2 new ropes, brand new ropes. These haven't been stretched out. They're not frayed. These are brand new ropes. And they say, we're just going to bind you up. And they bind him up and they lead him toward the Philistines. When the Philistines, verse 14, see him coming, they start running at him shouting. And what happens? The Spirit of the Lord comes on Samson. What happens to the ropes?
They fell apart.
They become like charred flax. Okay? Yeah. So, I don't know. You think of just like a little string that you set on fire. It just, immediately breaks. They just almost drop from his wrists. And the nearest weapon that he can find nearby is what? a fresh jawbone of a donkey. So I'm not for sure why this donkey is dead, or it apparently hasn't been that long. But he grabs a fresh jawbone of a donkey, which again, dead animal. But he grabs this jawbone, and I guess just that goes to town, just swinging that at people, and kills how many in verse 15? Kills 1,000 people. And then verse 18, drop down to verse 18. After he's killed 1,000 guys with just this jawbone, he's kind of thirsty. Whew, man, this killing people's hard work, right? He's thirsty. And so he calls out to God, you've given your servant this great victory, and now I have to die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised. And so God opened up the hollow place in Lehi, and water came out of it. And Samson drank, and his strength returned, and he was revived. So somehow a spring opens up where he's at. He gets water. He gets revived. He's okay.
There were quite a few confrontations that happened. The Lord wanted a confrontation.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. If God is working all this out to start, kind of retaliating, I guess, against the Philistines for taking over his people, it's happening multiple times. Okay. And there's a whole bunch of things to pull from this. There's some comical kind of things to it. There's some stuff you're like, what? And there's a little bit of hyperbole. We didn't have time this morning. We'll do it next week. There's one more kind of feat of strength before we get into his relationship with Delilah. And we'll talk about that at the beginning of class next week. But I want you to kind of see the pattern here, okay? They solve his riddle. So to get revenge for them solving his riddle, he kills 30 guys. He doesn't just go get 30 change of clothes. He kills 30 guys. They get revenge for killing the 30 guys by giving his wife to somebody else. He wants revenge for that. And so he sets their fields on fire. They want revenge for that, so they kill his wife and his father-in-law. He wants revenge for that, so he kills a whole bunch of them. They want revenge for that, so they get ready to surround him and attack Judah and kill him. And so what does he do in response? He kills all of them. And it's just one thing after another. And, it continues to escalate. Now, I will say, as Connie just pointed out, this seems to be part of God's plan of punishing the Philistines for, conquering and oppressing his people. But it's also like when God says don't worry about getting revenge, don't worry about getting even. Why does God not want us to get even? We don't ever just get even. We say we're getting even. Samson even said that. I'm going to get even. I have every right to do this. And it keeps escalating. And there's never, none of these people are like, oh, you know what? We're even now. You're right. We're totally even. That's our bad. Samson doesn't say that. Everybody just keeps going back and forth. And that's not just something that's common in Samson's life. It happens to us. When we want revenge, when we want to get even with somebody, and maybe we're not killing people, and maybe we're not setting things on fire, but we retaliate. Somebody says something negative to us, what do? Say something negative to them. Or something negative about them to our circle of friends. Then what happens? They say something about us, and then like it just escalates from there, right? Somebody mistreats us in some way, we mistreat them. This is what we do. Okay? Real quick, we'll end with this. Go over in the New Testament to the book of Romans. Romans chapter 12. Oops, too far. Begin in verse 17. Romans 12, 17 through 21. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. When Samson said, I've got every right to do this, whose eyes was he right in? His own. Okay? Paul says, do what's right in the eyes of everybody. If it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head. Verse 21, do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Now, I don't want to take away from God punishing the Philistines for mistreating his people. But this whole scenario is all about getting even and getting revenge. And it just goes back and forth. And look how much trouble, look how much destruction, look how many lives were sacrificed because somebody wanted to get even, because somebody wanted to get back at somebody else. And again, I'm not saying we go that far in our retaliation, but the principle is the same. And Paul says here, don't retaliate. Somebody does something evil to you, do something good for them. Man, it's a whole lot easier said than done, right? Whole lot easier said than done. But that's what we're called to do. And you can see, for an example here with Samson, what happens when we retaliate and we choose not to forgive and we get mad and we give in to our anger. Okay? All right, we're out of time. We're past time. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Rumors get started.
Rumors like killing a fox with a tire iron?
No, this is what
That's not a rumor. That's real.
That's true. So this is true. Was in South Dakota, met up with all my siblings, and Kathy, my sister, and John and me. Well, anyway, John and I went down to breakfast together because Kathy wanted to sleep in. Well, some woman seen me and John in a motel and took a picture. And they contacted their friend and they said, is John and Kathy still married? I said, well, as far as I know, we just saw him in a motel having breakfast with a woman. And so then this other friend knew Kathy and John's daughter, Lori. So they called Lori. They said, this gal took this picture. And Lori laughed. She said, well, that's Kathy's husband and Kathy and Sharon are, sisters. So then Lori called us and she says, is Sharon in the room? And Kathy said, yes. Said, is John in the room? Yes. Wait till I tell you how rumors get started. This
Yeah.
woman took a picture of you and John having breakfast
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. It happens quick.
Yeah.
It happens
Isn't that
quick.
Crazy?
Yep. Yeah.
Because we were in a motel and we were having breakfast.
Yeah. That's crazy.
She recognized it. We didn't even see the woman take the picture.
Yeah.
Isn't it? But she recognized him from going to the hall. And
Well, now you got to pay attention to who's taking your picture when you're,
how
phew.
she had to visit John's back and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
All kinds of people coming and going. Is that not crazy?
That is crazy. Okay, real quick before y'all go, I know everybody's gotta get kids, you got places to go. But I didn't do this at the beginning of class, but Marilyn asked that we pray for her today. She has recently got a cancer diagnosis and is going to have to start chemo sometime soon. We don't know exactly when that. There's going to be a biopsy first and then chemo after that. And so she just asked us to pray for her. So we're going to do that here at the end of class, and not just limited to a Tuesday class thing. Keep praying for Marilyn in the days ahead, and we'll hope for good things. So let's pray together. God, thank you for we just thank you for Marilyn. We thank you for just what a beautiful woman she is, and how much she impacts so many people around her. And we pray that you continue to give her many days to do that. We pray for healing We're thankful that the cancer that has been discovered has been taken care of to this point, but with the chemo that she's going to have to go through, we pray that it is successful, that she has as few side effects as possible, and that she recovers quickly, but that it also does its job, God, that you heal her body, and that you give her strength through this whole ordeal until she gets on the other side of it. Help her to feel your presence through this whole thing. Help her to lean on you, and give her support, give her people to surround her that she can lean on as well. So we put her in your hands, God, and we pray for you to answer these prayers through the name of your son, Jesus. Amen. Thank y'all for your time today. We'll do one more week of Samson next week.
Have you heard that new song, The Jesus Way? It is just wonderful. It's like, if you hurt me, I'm going to love you.
No, I haven't heard that at all.
I'm going to live in glory. And it just goes through this. It says, I choose the Jesus way.
Yeah, I haven't heard that at all.
It's a powerful, powerful song. You should
Is it like on KLRC or something like that? Okay.
Yeah, it's a powerful song.